Yeah, I think it's safe to, we'll call this meeting to order and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody stand and pledge allegiance to the flag
To
of
the flag
the
of
United States
the
of America,
United States of America,
to
to
the
the
republic
republic for which it stands,
One
One
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
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 with
liberty,
liberty,
and justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the present agenda?
so move.
Vote.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. We'll take a moment for any board comment. Any board members have a comment they'd like to state or put out there? Matt, you showed up on my screen.
Not intentionally, but I could say that I'm very excited for the school year starting. I think we're all looking forward to, despite the hardships here, a little more normality in our world. And as educators, it's good to see the school moving towards educating.
Thank you. Any other board members have any comments out there? All right, we'll move right along. We're going to open up to capital project, and Sal's going to introduce one of our new employees at the same time.
Thank you, Craig. Let me ask the guys a question. I'm just thinking this, it might take me a second. Am I queuing up your PowerPoint, or if I allow you to share your screen, are you presenting from there? Do you have a
It's up
preference?
to you, Sal. Entirely up to you. I could run it from here if you'd rather.
Only if you have it readily available, because I didn't bring it up. It would only take me a minute. Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Okay, no, actually, I'm looking for it. I'm opening it as we were talking.
So let me make sure that I can, you can share your screen. I think you have it so anybody can share their screen. If you have the share screen button at the bottom, you should be in good shape. While we're doing that, I don't know if the board, we've been virtual for so long, but I wanted to formally introduce Andy Davey, our new Director of Facilities. On my screen, he's in the upper left. I don't know where he's appearing on your screen, but his name is right there. As you know, Andy came to us from Hoosick Valley and has a tremendous background and experience. He really hit the ground running. I can't think of a better time to make sure that we have somebody that's well qualified in terms of our project and our buildings and grounds, and ahead of our maintenance and cleaning staff. So he's had a busy summer, to say the least. And please join me in welcoming Andy. He's been an amazingly great addition to our team, and we're really pleased to have him.
Andy, welcome. I'd like to welcome you to the Chatham community. I did get a chance to see you on one of Sal's town hall meetings, and very impressed so far. Heard good things around the buildings so far. So you'll be hooking up with me and Muriel in facilities soon, and look forward to meeting you in person with a mask.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course, with a mask.
And Dave, I don't know if you want to introduce your team, and I think I saw Will on as well. I'm not sure if the Mats are joining us tonight or not. Oh, yep, I see him there. Okay. I don't know if you want to, just for the sake of those people who have joined us, we've got 3 companies with us, and I'll let you introduce them. We've got our construction managers from Colliers. We have, I'm sorry, 2 companies, and we have our architects, SEI Design, and I'll turn it over to you, Dave.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the part. There we go. I wanted to see who was on. I see Matt Schools from SEI. I'm sure Will is there somewhere, and I also see Matt Monahan as well.
Yep.
And Ed Copeland from Colliers is on the call. Joining me, I'm David Valerie from Colliers, and we are the construction managers for the high school project.
And I see Chris has joined us as well.
Oh, Chris Bateman, I'm sorry. So Sal, I don't see an opportunity to grab the screen.
Let's see. It's so at the bottom, are you seeing participants polls and a green button that says screen share?
I do.
If you press on that,
Yep.
and if you only have one screen, it'll share your screen.
Gotcha.
And if not, I will find, there we go.
Okay, everybody can see a jogger on a beach?
Yes.
Okay. Let
Hey,
me
Jack.
just get things going here. Oh. My presentation is on the wrong side.
We can manage if you want to leave it in presentation view.
I think we're going to have to leave
There's
it
a
like
spoiler
that.
alert.
Oh, not in presentation. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I have two screens and the wrong screen is the presenting screen. So let's just go with what we've got. Okay. Well, I think the last time as a group we were together was last August, almost exactly a year ago. I think it was August 27th or 28th, where we met and gave the board and the administration an update on what was then phase 1 construction. So the big scheme of the construction project was really over 2 summers. We had 2 very condensed summers with a lot of planning in between. But last year at this time, we met with you for what was the phase 1 scope of work. And tonight we're gonna present to you just a very quick update on what we consider phase 2 update. So, so tonight just wanted to briefly introduce the who's here. It's the same team, but just remind those who do not know or who don't know who the project team is. Give you a brief understanding of what the overview of the scope is by school, where we are on schedule and budget, and then what we would consider to be the appropriate next steps. So in terms of the team introductions, the design team, as I mentioned before, is represented by the architect SEI Design Group, or C. As Matt schooled me last year, was the C is the 6 in Italian. I thought it was SEI. Anyways, the engineers, Engineered Solutions, the construction manager is us, and we have 5 prime contractors, a general trades contractor by Wayne Shaft, the HVAC contractor is Computo, the electrical contractor is Castleman, plumbing is Christofoli, and the site contractor is Malloy. So that's how the project was broken up into different trade packages, and in New York we have to bid it that way. So we went out to these 5 prime contractors, and that's our team. It's been a good team. It's been a good project all in all. Got a good group of contractors, good group of consultants. Everybody's responsive and has been there for it. So let's jump into the high school. So big year at the high school this year. Heavy HVAC upgrades. Really, that was the scope. Any other scope that was done in the building was really to support the HVAC upgrade. So I just included a few pictures, but as you can see in the top pictures with the crane, I think 9 of the 11 air handling units, I may have that number wrong, were replaced as part of the project. It involved heavy crane work, lifting the old units on, putting new units on. Down underneath, ceilings were removed, duct work was taken down. The rooms literally look like a bomb went off in them. This room right here is actually the partition between Spanish and fitness classrooms. We decided that it was better to put a footing in a section of the wall and rebuild the wall instead of putting steel in to support the air handling units. These air handling units are very heavy, so structurally it's a big deal to support them from underneath. So it was all of the air handling units. They've all been replaced. We also, I have a pretty heavy mechanical background, so we did a lot of work in the boiler room itself. We put in a new glycol feed system. We replaced a bunch of valves. We installed a new differential pressure sensor that will work with the drives on the pumps. We did a lot of enhancements, a lot of control enhancements. It was a good project. We're just coming to a close. The last bit of ductwork was actually installed today. There's one classroom left that the ceiling will be installed tomorrow, and we'll be ready. My guess is by mid next week, and I'll talk a little bit more about what does ready mean. So at the middle school, I'm going to switch it over to Ed and let Ed give a flavor for what we did to the middle school as part of phase 2.
Thanks, Dave. So the middle school, most importantly, this phase 2 was roofing, completing all the roofing, and the main entrance, security entrance, which is, so if you look at the first top left-hand corner, this is the last sequence of roofing. This was all removed in the evening and installed throughout the day. It was all done, between the raindrops. So it had its challenges here with the roofing. They did wrap up the roofing. They have a little bit of, the flashings, the copings to finish up over the next week. They're demobilizing from the site as we speak, restoring the lawn areas, and they'll be wrapped up over the next 5 days. So that'll put the roofing behind us. The next image is the main entrance. The main entrance, the new walkways are now installed. The entrance is sheetrocked. They're installing the unit heater in the ceiling as of today, wrapping up the ceilings next week. The new entries are in, windows are in, and this will also be over next week be substantially complete. They actually started working on your new signage today, the Chatham Middle School signage that goes over that main entrance as well. Railings are slated for next week as well, so that'll come together rather quickly over the next week or so. The next image is the little outbuilding there. This is where the custodian's office is, behind the auditorium. That got the new siding. The original plan was to reparge it. It was in pretty rough shape there, so we opted to go with a cement board siding to clean that up, and that'll be there for a lot of years and protecting that space. The next image is the walkways down the bottom left-hand side, all the main entrance walkways. It's just a matter of now, topsoil grading and, getting the seed down. So this will be all wrapped up for the school year to start as well. So you have your new secured entrance. The next image is inside the entry is your new window, your security window with the roll-up door. That's was installed last week, and they're just doing the finishes around that opening as we speak. And then, of course, the new exterior doors. This is the doors coming out of the tech wing that were wrapped up. So the tech wing doors were done. The gymnasium doors were done. New hardware, and then all your security was transferred over to the new doors and hardware. So middle school's in really good shape for next week.
Okay, at the elementary school, heavy plumbing this summer. Really, a majority of the building got all new plumbing lines replaced over the course of the summer. There was a major shutdown. We had to put in some temporary lines, relocate some people to accommodate some of the summer programs. As you can see on the top right, it's a part of the tunnels is a pretty nasty crawl space. Not nasty, but just if you don't mind crawling on your belly. We also did the exterior doors on the front of the building are new, and also there was a set of exterior doors on the going out to the courtyard that have been replaced. And the bottom right is a new split air conditioning unit for the IT closet. I should note, I glossed over a couple things at the high school, but we installed a new split AC system for the IT closet at the high school library as well. And one thing worth noting also at the library, or at the high school, is that we did ask to have in this arena of dealing with COVID, we did ask the contractors to investigate enhancing the filtration on the rooftop units to a MERV 13 rating, which is really the best rating. I think that's what the CDC recommends, but we wanted to enhance the filtration right out of the factory. So we did ask for the final filters that are going to be put in would be MERV 13. But back at the elementary school, few exterior doors, a split unit in the IT closet, but heavy plumbing, a lot of plumbing. Let's see, schedule. So we will be done. We will have everything will be turned over at the high school and the middle school by the end of next week. I really think it's going to be this Friday is when the majority of the spaces will be ready to go. But every space will be ready to go at the high school and at the middle school. At the high school, what will be outstanding will be what we call air and water balancing. So now it's a lot of tweaking of the systems. We have to adjust pump speeds and flow rates through coils and things like that. So that will be ongoing. There'll inevitably be a punch list, although the quality has been pretty good along the way. Air and water balancing is not that intrusive, and balancers are very used to working in schools after hours in and around the school program. So it's a routine for them. I anticipate 10 days of air and water balancing, and they're scheduled to start on Monday. Same at the middle school. We do have the carpet in the main office area. We're trying to get some carpet squares that are off the shelf, and that's going to be a horse race to make sure we have that. The auditorium HVAC, we got an unexpected masonry scope item late in the game where nobody owned the openings for the intake and the exhaust for the air handling unit for the auditorium. They're going in tomorrow. There's an excellent chance that the auditorium HVAC will be up and running for the beginning of school. But if I had to put my money on something that might be late, that might be it. And there's some exterior trim at the library that will be ongoing as well. The elementary school is ready to go. It's complete. We're just waiting on O&M manuals and valve tags and things like that. But that's been up and running for a few weeks now. Budget. Just a reminder: the overall project budget is just under 9.8 million. We are currently forecasting that we're going to be under budget. The exact how much, I have a range of where it could be, and really we're looking at what the next. We bid some alternates. There's also some added scope that we could put in there. So we're trying to evaluate what the next steps would be for if we're going to do some additional projects this fall. Next steps: finish the air and water balancing at the high school. I'm going to say by the end of September. The middle school auditorium HVAC, by the time everything is balanced and set up and ready to go, I'm going to be conservative and say again by the end of September. Punch list we're targeting to have complete by then as well. I want to be done in October. I mean that's really my goal. I want to have O&M manuals, as-built drawings, everything into Andy during the month of September. And demobilization actually started today. The Connex boxes and some of the stored materials around the middle school are being removed. And the next step is figuring out what, if any, additional work we'd like to do this fall. So that was a very brief, concise, probably didn't do the work justice, the project justice in the brief time that I had. But it's been a great project, a good team. We did a lot of good things. Tried to really look out for the district in terms of what we were willing to take on as additional work and where we needed to draw the line. But we did a lot of heavy mechanical work, additional work that I think will benefit the district over time. And Sal,
I have 3
you can
questions.
open it up for questions or pitch it back to you.
I'm going to start out with a couple questions that I promise not to blindside you. But if I recall, the the HVAC system in the auditorium at the middle school is just a ventilation system, right? There's no chiller, there's no AC part of that, correct?
It provides, sorry about that. It provides heating and ventilation for the auditorium. There is a direct expansion, a DX cooling coil built into the unit. We included that so that down the road, if you ever wanted to add air conditioning to that system, the additional expense would not be that bad. So that certainly is something on the list of, being proposed.
And Mike, can you remind me kind of the drop dead closeout so that we make sure that aid flows next year if we get aid anymore?
Yeah, that's what we're speaking about. The major alternative we had was the storage shed. But we really have to get everything in by December to make sure we get some of that aid for this current school year. And I think we're going to anticipate we want to close that out so we do get that aid considering the cuts.
And I guess that was it because you answered that question. Now I'll turn it over to the board.
I think, yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. Good report. Are there any questions from any board members right now?
This is Muriel. I have one, Craig.
Go ahead.
Last year when we were doing phase 1, we had a problem getting the safety window film for the new entrance to the middle school. Have we obtained that, and is it been installed?
Ed, I'll let you take that.
Yeah, so the safety film, the new entry doors, all the new doors around the school, the aluminum entries, all have safety glass. They're all ballistics glass. The existing main entrance does not have any film on them.
The new one we just put in does not?
The new one does.
Yes.
Yeah, the new one has the new glass is bulletproof glass.
Okay.
There's not a safety there's not a safety film that would be applied to like the elementary school front entrance glass.
This was the middle school that we were
Yeah.
concerned about.
Yep. So that glass is the
Okay.
excuse me.
I heard David mention we haven't done any. Have we done any alternates at all? We had lists of alternates. Have we done any?
Oh yeah, we did quite a few alternates.
Okay.
I think.
All right, that's fine, and I'm happy you did that. We'll get a list of them sometime, correct?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, that's all. You don't have to put it
I think we tackled, I want to say all of the alternates with the exception of the maintenance fence.
Mhm.
Or I'm sorry, the maintenance
Storage building.
Okay.
Yeah, the storage building is the only one.
I just want to refresh. It's been a couple of years since we did this, right?
Yep.
So when we said we bid that as a strategy because
Right, I know.
right, and so when we awarded the contracts,
Mm-hmm.
we awarded all the alternates except the storage shed. So
Yep.
they were built into the original contracts.
Already.
The only one that remains that was bid is the storage shed.
Already. Gotcha. Thank you.
I liked, David, I liked the fact that you mentioned under budget.
Yeah. Wonderful.
That doesn't happen too often, so on many projects.
Well,
Thank
and
you.
I just want to take a moment, Craig, and this is the real reason why not only do you have a construction manager, but you have quality construction managers. One small example, and they're not going to toot their own horn, but if you go back to the image where there was a cinder block wall built,
Yeah.
that originally was spec for some steel, which is extremely expensive, but through the proactive nature of Colliers working with SCI Designs, they said it doesn't make sense to spend that kind of money. Let's switch that out, build a wall. The masonry piece of it is much less expensive than the steel, and there was a cost savings. And then there were little tiny alternates along the way, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I think the picture is the in the bottom left there is the glycol, right? That was something that needed to be corrected. That wasn't necessarily on our original plan. Small upgrade taken care of. And then I think the next picture over was some, and this is where my expertise ends, but some valves and stuff that will help us with better controls that weren't in the original specs, that were just a simple, you're pulling this stuff apart. It doesn't make sense not to replace it. So we've got some value added, I don't know if that's called value engineering or not, but value added stuff that went along the way that's going to help us down the road that may have not necessarily been the thought at the beginning. So there are numerous examples of how when you have quality people, from your architects to your construction managers working for you, how they are just representing the customer, us, the owner, well. And I couldn't be more pleased with Wayne Schaff and with Malloy and the other subs. I know we had a little bit of a slowness with some of the duct work, but it sounds like we're back on schedule. And even to the extent that, if you recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, we had to put, when we realized that we couldn't complete the front entrance last year at the middle school, we had the main entrance doorway, I believe, had already been discarded. And we had to incur an expense to purchase a new entranceway. Well, we didn't just discard that. They took that entranceway, that door frame out, and put that in another location in the building. So although we incurred a little bit of labor, I'm sure, in terms of insulation, we knocked off another full entry that wasn't necessarily on the plan, but we utilized a product that we bought, and I'm not so sure had any value on the open market afterwards. So again, just because we've got good people working for us, keeping an eye out for our best interests. So,
Tal, I just want to, I worked with, Ed and Dave and Matt Will for the last 2 years. I've been in a lot of their meetings, and Andy joined in, and then with Steve. And that is the one thing I will say with Colliers, like I said, it was under budget, but it enabled us to do these project enhancements. They found solutions, cost-effective solutions to issues that we came up the front entrance, the oil tank, the back wall on the line, the glycol system. That was Dave came up with that idea. So that helped us avoid future potential problems down the road. And we had the money in the budget to do these, these enhancements, these small change orders. So that I really appreciated their input, and their, they were looking out for Chatham, which was good.
And visibility, I was really thankful that, I wasn't out there a lot, but when I was out there, I was running into, I see Will out there, and Ed and Dave and the whole gang, and I'm sure Matt visited as well. So my greatest appreciation, and I don't want to get too far down the road, but it's always been my thought that we knew that we needed to get construction managers involved in the process. This time around, we did it post-referendum, but I could easily see how valuable it is if we go down the road of another project in the future, that we get them involved earlier in the pre-engineering and pre-design phase, because having more heads together that have experience in the business only saves us money and problems down the road. So,
excellent. Does any other board members have a comment or a question?
Let's build a shed.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that part was my idea. We have all that expensive equipment getting weathered.
Well, in all seriousness, and Mike, scold me tomorrow if I'm speaking out of line, but if we're going to make a decision, which we need to determine, but if we're going to make a decision to move forward on that shed, we're going to need to do it quickly.
I agree. We're gonna start discussing that immediately. So,
guys, you're meeting on Thursday. I expect an answer by Thursday afternoon.
We would like to get that. We would like to get that. That would be great to get that done.
Let me and Muriel know, and we'll sit in.
Yeah, we have to get that equipment out of the snow if we're gonna have to do it.
We'll do our best. Now we got to put our negotiating hats on and make it work.
Okay.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. Matt, anything you want to add at the end, Chris? I think I've met you once, so always a pleasure.
I just want to add, as Dave and Ed have said, the team involved from all across the board, including the district, the representatives, Andy jumping in late in the game, right at the beginning of summer, it's just been a tremendous feat to watch and participate in, and just proud of the entire team, not just the Colliers team, but the entire team involved, including the school and district. And it was a pleasure.
Excellent.
This is Muriel again. I just want to say hello to Matt Monahan. How are you?
Very well, Muriel. And we would say the same from SEI Design Group's point of view. It's been a very good project, gone very well, and you're a great board to work with and a great district. You've got a great team. Thank you.
Sounds like you've been very good to us this time. That's good. And other times too.
And someday when we
Thank
can all, someday when we're all physically back together, we'll get a big cake and some celebrate together. So, thank you.
Fair enough. All right, Sal, I'll stop sharing. And
gentlemen, feel free to to exit the conference whenever it's convenient for you.
all right, thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a safe drive home.
I'll try not to trip on the carpet.
Ed's happy about that commute tonight.
Oh, I'm home.
I know, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
He's
Lucky me. Thank you.
got to go from his living room to his bedroom, take off his suit. So
Oh, yeah, this is going too hot.
make sure you
It's only on,
make sure
yeah,
you
it's
exit
only
the
on,
conference.
you know it's only on the top.
Yeah.
Stand up.
All right, guys.
No,
Thank
don't. Please do
you. Don't
not.
stand up. I did a pledge of allegiance. Come on, I stood up.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right,
Have a
thanks,
good night,
guys.
everybody. Thank you.
We're going to move along to some superintendent's report.
Yeah.
Sal?
Okay. I switched back to the agenda, but now I've got to get my PowerPoint. So just let me. There we
Okay.
go. You got that? Is that what you see?
Yep.
Yeah.
You're good.
Perfect. So I've pretty much put all of my comments tonight for the superintendent's report into this PowerPoint. I'm going to hit upon a few different areas. Pretty much everything that we're doing, all of our energy, all of our time is going into reopening the schools safely. Tonight, I'm going to give you a brief overview, because I know many of you have joined us for many of the town halls, and I don't want to rehash all the finite details. I'll go through these few slides I have and then entertain any questions you have about the opening. As we've said all along, things change almost daily. This presentation has some updated information since this morning. So if you happen to tune in, I gotta think what day it is. It's Tuesday, last Thursday. There's even more updated information. I'm also going to mention, I know I'm anticipating that one of the questions that's been asked in the past about homeschooled students, where we are this year compared to last, and some of our full remote numbers, those parents who've indicated to us based on a request form that we sent out that they would like to at least start out this school year in a scenario that was fully remote. I'll share that with you. So just a couple things. As you go through this presentation last Thursday, I added a new feature to it. We've been asked many times by parents in the community how they can help. And I wanted to identify clearly some ways that, oh, sorry, I was moving that to see it better. To identify some ways very overtly when they can help. So what I've done in this presentation is put a little please and thank you symbol, and you'll see it throughout the presentation. So that's where we really would encourage people to help us out. The other thing is, and I've said this right from the beginning since we put our plan out there, flexibility, and now today I added, and a learning system will be key factors to with all of our plans. What I mean by a learning system is I don't think anybody is thinking that we're going to have all the right answers to all the questions. These are so complex, and I'm tapped into Capital Region groups, regional groups with our Questar, and everybody is struggling with how to do this best. And I think the best answer we can give is to say that we don't have it all figured out, but we're going to make our best attempt at starting out with what's in the best interest of our students, but to be very sensitive to the fact that we may have to change. We have to be agile and make adjustments to the environment as it evolves. That's the key, I believe. So just a quick review. We did post our plan on Monday, August 3rd. To get to our plan and to get to all of the materials that we've tried to be very transparent about. You can go to our website, halfway down the page, coronavirus, that takes you to a landing page, and we have posted every video of every town hall, every PowerPoint presentation, and all the documentation related to our opening. We wanted to be very transparent with our community. We also created a snapshot, which we'll have to take another look at to update that, but that was just our attempt to have a Reader's Digest version, an executive summary of the opening plan so that it could be easily digested by the community. You've heard this from the start. The plan addresses 13 areas that the New York State Education Department, Governor's Office, Department of Health has indicated in terms of guidance. I'm going to touch upon a few that are important. Probably the primary one is health and safety. I don't think anybody would argue that we want our students back. We know that we do education the best when our students are in front of us. But since that can't happen in all cases, we want to make sure when they are with us, they are going to be safe as we possibly can have it. That means that you've heard it all along from the CDC. Good hand hygiene, good respiratory hygiene, washing hands, proper use of masks. That's real important. And that's where parents can really, this is number one, this is where parents can help us. They should, and we've been recommending this in our meetings with parents, whether the principals are meeting with kindergarten parents or we're having trainings, we're suggesting parents should right now be making sure that their students are wearing masks, are practicing, are having conversations about the importance of wearing a mask. We have social media, we have signage, we have video instruction. Andy and the team have been putting down placards or floor decals with proper social distancing. There's some more work that we have to do. The custodial staff is nicely waxing over them to maintain them, and they're very attractive. I like the aesthetics and the visuals that we've purchased. So thank you, Andy, for that. We've always said that social distancing, wearing a mask, being 6 foot apart, or using a barrier, they're all various strategies in terms of protecting us, and then also the proper use of PPE. This has been a struggle. Andy, if you want to chime in at some point, please feel free. But he has been working tirelessly through the through the empty promises that a variety of salespeople have made over the last month that they could deliver on any of this stuff. They were quick to take our order and not so quick sometimes to deliver. So Andy has put in some strategies. He's placed multiple orders, set some very stringent protocols with vendors. Say, listen, you said it was going to be here by Friday. If it's here by Friday, we'll accept it. We'll pay for it. If it's not here by Friday, I've already moved on. So we're not playing games with the vendors anymore. If you say you have it, then mean it and deliver it. And now stuff is starting to slowly come in. We have plenty of cloth masks. Andy actually drove down to downstate to pick them up. I think a week ago Saturday. Wasn't going to wait to them deliver. He said, "You got them? I'm coming down." Went down and got them. Thermometers, no-touch thermometers, disposable masks. Andy went to Home Depot this weekend and bought spray bottles because the vendor who promised him 100 didn't deliver. So, kudos we're doing everything and anything to get all of the products that we need to open up safely. Andy's worked tremendously with the nurses to make sure their areas and the isolation rooms that we're creating are up to specifications, working very closely with them. And then I think I'm going to talk a little bit about masks in a second. I'm going to skip over, I'll go over one flow chart in terms of how we're going to handle folks that are ill. But that's another place where parents, we're going to ask for their cooperation. If a student does develop a temperature in the day, you get a call from a nurse, we really need parents to be on top of that. And so we really appreciate that. So here is just a screenshot. I think I had this for last Thursday, I'm not sure. We're going to start out with an automated self-screening program. It's in place. We've been testing it over the last couple of days. But basically all students and staff, somewhere around 4 a.m. will receive a hyperlink to this form. They have to answer the 4 basic questions, and you probably are familiar with them. Have you traveled into any of the states that New York State is now restricted? That's updated when that changes. Have you been in contact with anybody who's tested positive in the last 14 days? Have you tested positive, and are you running a fever of 100 degrees or higher? If you answer no to all those questions, you get a green light. We get indication that you've done that. That's a requirement. We need to make sure that all staff have complied with that, and this is a huge place where parents can help us. So parents will get a hyperlink in the morning. It's conveniently done through census or through home. So if you have multiple children within your household, regardless of if they're attached to you in our student information system, you will receive this hyperlink, and you quickly have to answer that questionnaire for the students. The biggest question I'm asked is what if somebody doesn't comply? Well, this information and the system is versatile enough that if you don't answer it by a certain time, we can send you a reminder. We're working out those times now. So, Steve informs me that the first kid steps on the bus somewhere around 6:30 or so. So somewhere around 6:15, if a parent hasn't or if the staff person hasn't done this, they'll get a reminder. However, if they do show up at school, the people who are checking students in will have a laptop, and they're going to be able to see the students who got a green light and the students who had a red light. Students that have a red light have to go through a separate line, and we have to manually check their temperature. And as you can imagine, the more compliance we get, the more efficient it's going to be in the morning, and the more we're going to have the ability to get students in a classroom and get going with instruction. So this is a real big area where compliance is going to be very helpful. I think I got that covered. Oh, and this is a good, didn't spell guidelines right. Sorry about that. We're going to fix that. It's kind of like punch lists, right? So anyway, mask guidelines. You've heard me say this before. Schools, the guideline is that students have to just wear masks in public areas, and if they were properly socially distanced in the classroom, the guidance is that you can have the discretion to take them off. We took a much more conservative approach to that. Some districts are in different places. It doesn't matter where other people are. We have said that students must wear a mask. They must wear a mask on the bus. They must wear a mask in the hallways. They must wear a mask in any of the areas where people congregate. But we are also cognizant of the fact that they need a little bit of a break. There's a lot of schools of thought. You've heard me, I've gotten a lot of pushback where some people are on the side where they don't think students should take off the mask at all. I get it. And some people they don't see why they can't take them off while they're quietly seated in the classroom. We're trying to find a very reasonable, logical place to start. Like I said before, we will evaluate these items, and if we need to make modifications one way or the other, we'll do that after a certain amount of time. Right now, the mask breaks 1 5-minute period every 30 minutes. I was asked not to have that be discretionary, so we put in a plan that anybody doesn't have to make a decision by it. Every half hour, we give the students, as long as they are, and there's a qualifier, seated at their desk and not doing anything, no physical activity. They're just quietly seated. They might be doing an activity. They might do a meditation exercise. They might be doing some work, but they are quietly seated where they take the break. At a secondary level, 5 minutes every period. At lunch, when they are eating, they can take the mask down, but they will be properly socially distanced. And pretty much, we're going to try to take the approach. You see some icons at the bottom there, some images. It's really, masks, as you know, I'm speaking probably to the choir, aren't about protecting yourself or protecting others. And so the real opportunity here from an educational perspective is getting people to and encouraging people to wear masks to help others, to help their grandparent, to help their siblings, to help their mom and dad, people who may be compromised or may be at higher risk of contracting COVID. So that's our mask procedures. For those of you who've been with us before, we've had to do facility and capacity studies. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but the principals, Andy, custodians, Mike has been very instrumental in this. They've gone to all the different classrooms and they've figured out what's a socially distanced classroom look like, and basically made sure that if the desks are properly distanced 6 foot on center apart from each other, then how many students can we fit in? And on average, and correct me, we're somewhere between 9 and 13, probably somewhere around 11 as an average. Also, Andy has purchased, and we think coming in this week, the operative word thing, some polycarbonate barriers, not plexiglass. We can't use plexiglass. But that's in a situation where we might have a room where we have 13, where we could really use a capacity for 13, but we have 11. But if we use a couple polycarbonate shields, we might be able to situate the room so we can get a few other students in it and not have to create a whole nother section. We just don't have the room. We've been very fortunate at the elementary school to have a creative plan, but when you see how many kids are remote, it's all starting to work out for us, at least initially. A little bit about child nutrition. The overarching philosophical thing is we're going to feed kids. Barb Murray, as you know, is a superstar. She's all over this. We're going to make sure that the students who are eligible for free and reduced and anyone else who would like to purchase meals is going to have that available to them. Certainly part of the mandate, but we're working those details out. We're actually looking at today, as late as today, we looked at a lunch order form because at some point the classrooms have to identify who needs a lunch and how they get that to the food service people, and then those will be likely at the elementary delivered, and then at the high school and middle school, we're looking at how potentially on a limited basis the cafeterias may play into that. But if you have any questions at the end of this, I know I'm doing it a little fast, but I don't want to really say things that you've heard for the last couple weeks. But we can revisit anything in terms of questions that you might have. Transportation, just as late as last Thursday, I was answering parents, why can't we bring hand sanitizer on the buses? Well, guess what? Now the new guidance has changed, and they're realizing that that might be a good idea. It seriously was a combustible liquid that was not allowed. Now they're going to allow it. We're working with our transportation, our maintenance mechanics with Steve Leineck and with Andy on not only procuring the materials, but how do we safely mount them in the bus. I think it's a great idea that, as students are getting on the bus, they get a little spritz of hand sanitizer, and that would hopefully knock down the virus and help us contain any of these issues. I've thrown a couple pictures that I got off of the internet. These are not our buses, but this is kind of the thought that roughly one student would sit in a seat as far apart as possible on the bus, and they would be staggered. We are allowed to have siblings sit in the same seat with students, and on average, we're going to be in the low 20s as a capacity, low to mid 20s. Let's talk a little bit about sanitation. The guideline, disinfecting. Cleaning and disinfecting, two very different things, right? So in terms of disinfecting, which is what kills the virus, the guidelines say that we have to clean the buses once an evening. That will be done. We're working out the different solutions, the backpacks and things that our employees need to safely sanitize or disinfect the buses. The buses will be touched up midday. We're working with the BDA, the Bus Drivers Association. We really appreciate their collaboration and how we can maybe hit railings, door handles, backs of seats, just something to kind of touch it up between the morning and afternoon run. But the true disinfecting will happen each night. And I can't thank all of our non-instructional employees who've just really wanted to be a part of us being successful and part of the solution. So a couple of the time frame, we had done an initial survey, transportation survey, which sought just to see how parents were feeling in terms of comfort level with riding a bus. And so the first survey we sent out several weeks ago was, okay, given the new parameters, students wearing a mask, separated on the bus, what's your comfort level in terms of if you were eligible? It only went to the eligible households. If you're eligible, would you utilize transportation? And then another question we asked at that original survey was, if you are able, are willing and able, so not only do you have the means, you have but you are available, perhaps your schedule allows, would you be willing to drive your students? So that gave us kind of a temperature reading of where we were with transportation, because remember, as we were trying to design in-person and remote learning, we need to know where we were with really the constraint was transportation. If we couldn't get kids here, regardless of what the in-person model looked like, we were going to have a problem. So that then was followed up with an actual transportation request. So we took the subset, the data set of all eligible transportation students. We subtracted all of the parents who indicated their students would be fully remote initially. Remember, that's why, and I'll get into that survey in a second, that's why we asked by Monday the 17th who was selecting full remote and who was selecting in person. We needed to know. So another survey went out on the 20th asking just those parents who were eligible and were coming or sending their student to school K-6 in person every day or in a hybrid mode 7 through 12. And of them, we asked everyone to respond to the survey, yes or no. We did get, I think, 300, and that was due back on Monday, yesterday. We did get 302 responses. Wished it was all 400 or 500 that we sent it out, but this gives us a little bit of a temperature reading. And right now, what we believe to be the case is that about 46% of the 300, so about 150 respondents will take advantage of transportation. Some are uncertain, but what you don't see behind the scenes is those parents had to indicate which students in the household will be taking the bus and on what, whether it's an AM or PM run. with that data set, which was just turned over to Steve today, now Steve and Diane and maybe Teresa will look at that data set and now make sure that, and it appears at this point we're going to be okay, that we can transport everyone who needs a ride to school and has selected an in-person model to be able to provide that. So things are really encouraging on the transportation results. The principals are also working on, and we understand, traffic patterns. We know that things are going to be a lot different this year. We've got a lot more parents who are dropping kids off. We have buses, and we have to still figure that out a little bit with multiple entrances, especially since we have to potentially verify whether a student had done a self-check. Getting into kind of a real quick overview, just kind of a remembering where we are and where we've come from, right? So K through 6, we are in person. The choices are in person 5 days a week, or parents had the option to select full remote. We are also very cognizant of our special education, our ENL, and our vulnerable populations, and we have offered them 5 day a week instruction K-12. Not everybody has taken advantage of that, but we want to make sure. So for instance, our self-contained special ed classes, we'd like to really see those students 5 days a week. In fact, when I get to the schedule, they're actually going to be starting right off the bat, unlike some of our other students. We'll go over the opening day schedule momentarily. At the secondary level, every day we get closer to being able to define the model. I think by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, our principals are going to be able to publish what the opening hybrid schedule 7 through 12 is going to look like. This is not easy. We have talked to they have talked to colleagues across the region. I have talked to colleagues across the region. This is the one spot that everybody is struggling with. How do you, and the teachers as well, how do you have students who are somewhat are in person? The elementary level, I should say, it's a little bit easier, right? The strategy there is now that we know who's staying home and who's coming, the strategy there is we're going to have one section per K-5 of a remote teacher. So if you have selected remote at the elementary level, you are going to have a remote teacher. It worked out pretty nicely. One section's a little high, one's a little low, but for the most part, that's worked out really well. It's really the challenge for our secondary teachers, I know we have a few on the meeting tonight, is we're asking them to have students who are full remote 5 days a week, and we have students 7 through 12 who are going to be with them every other day, and that is a little bit of a challenge, and we're working through that with them as to what does that look like and what are the expectations. Remember, we know, and we've committed to, remote education will not look anything like it did in the spring. There's much different in terms of daily interactions, attendance, grading expectations, and it's a whole new world for us, and we've got to figure that out. We just today figured out the CTE dilemma. Thanks to Steve in transportation. And maybe even if there's anybody from transportation on the call, they may not know this yet, but we figured it out, because here's the challenge, right? CTE is attending 5 days a week at the Hudson CTE Center, but if you are in high school, which 11th and 12th graders will have an alternate schedule. What do we do traditionally if you came back, if you were a junior and you came back from the AM program, you just stayed in school that afternoon. Or if you were a senior and you were going down for a PM program, you would come to school in the morning and go to the PM program. Well, what happens on your alternate high school day? That's a little bit of a challenge. So we have that figured out. We believe it's a really good plan because it includes transportation from the student's home to either here or to the CTE Center. And that we've just worked out as late as today. And we'll be formalizing that tomorrow or Thursday. So on the 10th of August, some parents were a little reluctant to commit, but we needed to know it had to be a commitment. It couldn't be a survey. It couldn't be, I think I'm going to do this, because we couldn't plan. It was that, as I explained to a lot of parents, it was the chicken and the egg. We can't design a remote program. We don't know who's going to be in person and remote. And I understand it's tough for you to decide on a program if you don't know what it looks like. So it was a little bit of kind of trust and a little bit of back and forth. That survey went out on the 10th. It was due back on the 17th. And as of today, and these numbers are not atypical of the region, We may be, it varies by school district. I've heard numbers in the 30s in some of the urban schools in the 60s, but I've heard some other schools that are in the teens. So right now, 105 of our 385 MED students, or 27%, have selected full remote, and we're going to talk about the commitment period there. Middle school 57, high school 68. So on average, about 24, or about a quarter of our students have selected at least to start to be fully remote. That commitment period, when we talk about a lot of questions, the frequently asked questions many of them are related to, can I go back and forth with the models? And I want to be very clear, because this is a very big area of contention with parents. If you selected remote, we're asking that commitment be made till the first trimester at MED and the first quarter at the high school. A lot of schools wanted a commitment for the first semester or to the end of December. We were a little bit more flexible there. But if you committed to that, we're holding parents to that, because the alternative was you let us know you were going to be in school, and that's how we built our capacity. So if someone is in person and decides to do full remote, that's not too big of a deal. We have some flexibility there. But if someone signed up for full remote and now wants to be in person, that could be problematic, because we're pretty much at the point where we're doing our schedule and building our sections. And if we have 12 people in a room, and we can only get 12 people in a room, and we base it on this commitment, and all of a sudden you want to come back, you can see where that's problematic. So that's where parents needed to help us as well. Let's talk a little bit about this. This is kind of ironic, because I'd like to think that we were a little forward thinking. I don't know if everybody in the community would agree with me, but I'll tell you why I think that. So this is one of those things where conceptually, when I listened to the administrative team, we got feedback from others. This plan started to emerge. This is not new. You've seen this. It went late to teachers a week or so ago, but now we're on version 2. And I apologize, but I do want to spend a little time with this, because I think it's important for the board to understand it completely. That way, if you get any questions from the public, you'll know how to do this. So basically, it's a calendar that takes us from Labor Day to October 9th. Really, October 5th is the key date there. The first week, like almost unilaterally in the region, I don't know very many districts who did not do this. They moved all of their superintendent's conference days up to the opening week. That is allowing them to do all the professional development. You know what I didn't think of, but I'll make sure the board has it. We have developed a really nice schedule or grid of the 4 days of professional development. That's something that I wish I had thought to put a slide in here, but I'll forward that to you. But so those 4 days, 9/8 to 9/11, are filled with trainings on remote instruction and strategies and professional development and team meetings and building meetings, and really trying to give the teachers a leg up or a firm start to the school year. We early on realized that there is such a myriad of complex new procedures, new protocols that everybody has to at once become accustomed to. And that probably is not feasible to do all at once. And if we break it down, we have a better chance at success. So this is a little different than the original version. In this version, what happens in kindergarten has changed. So let me try to take you through this real quick. The following week, Monday the 14th, self-contained special education classes, 2 at MED, 1 at the middle, 1 at the high school, will all start. The special education teachers approached us and said they were much more comfortable having their students in person right from the start. So unless a parent has selected full remote, and I'm very hopeful that they had that conversation with our special ed director and the teachers, unless they had selected full remote, our self-contained students start on the 14th, and they go on from that point forward, no change. Only kindergarten students in 1/3, so in the first 3 days, let's say we have 60 students, we're breaking them down into 3 cohorts of 20, and we're working directly with the parents. On any given day, 1/3 of the cohort comes in for screening. They're here all day, they're screened by the kindergarten team, and then after those 3 days, the kindergarten team felt they didn't need 5, that after those 3 days, those kindergarten students would be placed in the section for which they're going to start on the 17th. So kindergarten students start full-time on the 17th, and they are there from that point forward. let's take us, and all other students, any student that's not in a group that I mentioned is full remote from 9:14 to 9:25. What happens on Monday the 21st? We add in preschool. Preschool, we've downsized to 10 students. That way we can get them in one classroom. I think we have 9 registered right now, so 10 students coming preschool. They'll start on the 21st. Kindergarten continues, and self-contained special education continues. Everyone else still full remote. Well, when we did that, we said, listen, one thing that we don't want to do is we don't want to create a hardship for our parents. And so during those 2 weeks, we came up with the concept, and I want to call it learning support. I didn't like the word childcare. It's learning support. It's a version of child supervision. What does that mean? That means that parents who work and have no other place to send their children can drop them off at MED. This is for grades 1 through 5 because kindergarten is going to be here. It's going to take place the hours of the day that we were operational instructionally, 7:40 to 2:30, and it's going to happen from Monday the 14th to Friday the 25th. And parents just got a survey, I believe yesterday, it's due this Friday. They can select as little or as much of that support as they want. If they want their kids to come on Monday a.m. of each week, they just check the Monday a.m. box. If they want Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or if they want their child to come from 7:40 to 2:30 for all 10 days, they can do that too. The only thing that we're not providing is transportation. They do need to drop off and pick up their child. And I already said that, signing up survey due the 28th. So that's that. This is where another ask, right? You see the symbol, please ask and thank you. We are saying that we do have a capacity limit. The survey is now 2 days old. It doesn't look like it's going to be a problem, but we also ask that for those parents who really don't need it, they're home and their kids can do the full remote, we're really asking for their help. If this isn't really, it'd probably be nice to drop them off and get some stuff done, some errands, but if you don't need it, we're really asking parents to refrain from using it. With that said, kids are going to come in. There's going to be a special area, classrooms, because remember that other teachers are teaching remote, so it won't be classroom teachers, it'll be teaching assistants and classroom aides, and they will be supervised in terms of their use of the technology, and they're connecting to the same remote classrooms that the students who are at home were doing. But this way, we try to minimize and address the issue that parents had with no support. This will also give us time in the afternoons and is to be able to have more team planning time and provide more professional development so that teachers are even more ready for if we are more ready for in-person or if we eventually go full remote because of the circumstances, they'll be ready to do that. The following week, this is where I want to make sure that we get it right. So now who's here? Pre-K is here, kindergarten's here, self-contained special ed, they're still here. This is where only grade 5 on Monday comes in, and then they don't come in the rest of the week. And Tuesday only grade 4, and Wednesday only grade 3, and Thursday grade 2 and grade 1. That's a day dedicated to each of those classes, those grade levels, so they can come in and we can work with them in terms of how the building's going to work and all the new expectations that they've learned about during their first couple of weeks. On that day, in terms of the middle school, 6th grade will be in on Monday, and here's where we start to differentiate the cohorts: 7A and 8A, and 7B, grade 7B and grade 8B on Thursday and Friday. And then at the high school, this is the only time that those grades will be together. All of grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 high school students will be full remote on that Friday. Now we get to October 5th, and that's where everybody will be in the plan that they've selected. If you've selected full remote, you're full remote that day. If you're K6, you're full time. If you are in 7, 12, you're in whatever cohort. If it's A cohort that day, you're coming in. If you're B, you're home remote, and then the next day vice versa. And that's where, if nothing changes, that's where we'll be until the end of that tri-semester or that quarter, if nothing changes, right? So with that said, I just saw this just before we went on. This is Capital Region teachers, are now suggesting that that schools delay classes until October because of testing and safety protocols and federal funding. And so, that's what we were thinking a few weeks ago. If we do a more strategic, slower start, we're going to have a chance to get it right and do it well. And that was our strategy. And I appreciate the board who supported us in that initiative. I know you got a lot of calls. Now I'm going to skate through a little bit of the rest because you know me, you'll be here an hour. Reopening questions and answers. We set up that email, Chatham United. I use that as a source for the town hall meetings. That's still up. I check it on a daily basis. As you know, I've committed to answering most of those questions personally if I can. And then we use them in the town hall. And then we also created this very great resource of, it's not even frequently asked questions. We pretty much posted almost all the questions and answers. That way people could go there first because we saw a lot of similar questions being asked. So that's up on the website. This is a different approach I'm taking than the town hall. In the town hall, I had all these narrative slides. This is just, we get asked a lot. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but just know that we have, and the nurses have worked very diligently on all the guidelines. We basically know if a student or staff person is symptomatic, we have an isolation room in each building. They go to the isolation room. If they're staff, they go home. If they're a student, their parent gets called. And pretty much at that point, they need to seek medical attention. Medical attention, their primary care physician. At that point, we're not doctors. They make the decision. If the doctor says, you know what, that doesn't sound like COVID. It sounds like you might have an ear infection. I want to see you in the office. Yes, you do. I can confirm that. I'm very confident it's not. Here's a note. You come back to school. Well, here's an antibiotic. Come back in whatever days you come back. That's what happens if there's the medical practitioner determines that it's likely not COVID related. However, you have a couple symptoms and he's not sure. He or she is not sure. They say, we want you to go get a COVID test. Student, staff gets COVID test. Now they are in quarantine until they get the results. And then, obviously if they get the results and it's negative, then they need a note to come back from their medical practitioner, return to work. If it is positive, and then that whole thing kicks in. Now, one thing I do want to mention, the other advantage of that program we're using that does that self-screening, asks you those questions during the day, there's another reason why we chose that program. That program is tied directly into our student information system. What's our student information system do? Well, it has the entire student schedule. So in the case of a positive, the health department's going to get on the phone and probably call me or the nurse, and they're going to tell us that Johnny has tested positive. And our role in that is, can you help us? They're going to handle everything. They have public health nurses and contact tracers, but they need our assistance. They don't know this student. They don't know. And so under very careful privacy considerations, they will be given a list of those people we believe came in contact with that individual. And how can we do that? Well, if that individual is in grade 2 and he or she's in Mrs. Johnson's class, we know the other students in that class, we know the TA, we know the teacher, and we're going to be able to print out a list of name and just contact number. We're not going to divulge, really directory information, if you will. The health department takes that and they will handle it appropriately. And they will coordinate that with us and handle everything from that point on. So if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer it. One note about school closure, different than in the spring. A few cases may or may not close the school down. That is all going to come in consultation with the Department of Health. If the Department of Health says there's one student who tested positive in one classroom, then it may just be that classroom is quarantined, that teacher, that classroom aide, and then Andy's team will go in and disinfect that room under the protocols and guidelines that they have, and then we'll handle it from there. The one thing we don't know is where our trigger is. Where is it to the point where we have enough cases, enough teachers out, enough students out, where it's not practical to run a building, and I have to shut a building down, or we have to shut the district down and we go to full remote. That's a little bit uncertain right now. Probably will be in consultation with the Department of Health and the administrators. At some point, you lose functionality. So we're cognizant of that, but I just wanted to make sure that people realize that one case not make a school closure. Last night we began a 3-part series. Had a little bit of a technical difficulty in terms of screen sharing, so I think it was a little frustrating for some of the MED parents. But I really want to shout out to Ashley, Mike Loomis, Donna Eager, Mike Stead, and Sarah Murray, who took it upon themselves to get together and create these workshops. Parents asked for it, they asked for it, we designed it, and we're delivering it. Albeit, I know there was a few bumps in the road last night. I think parents still stuck on for an hour and a half. They've been invited back tomorrow night. We know we have the technical difficulties worked out, but a tremendous, you know, they were very frustrated, but we wanted to make sure our parents had a better understanding of some of the programs we're going to be using, some of the strategies we're going to be using, and hopefully this won't be the end of it, but we have some more coming up the next couple nights. You've seen this slide before. Just wanted, you know, a shout out to Mr. Burns, Mr. Stead, Mr. Thorson, Mr. Forrest. Student voice. We've had two forums. We're going to have some more. Hearing from the students. What are their anxieties? What are their apprehensions? I think Matt's kids were on at one time. We want to hear from them, and we want to answer their questions. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable with what they're walking back into. You already know that we've had there was 3 required by the governor. We've had 4 town halls with the community, and 1 specifically last Thursday for staff. That ended up running about 2 hours as well. And you know, we will likely have more as we get a little closer and we have more answers. And I've already talked about our specialized email that we set up. Again, here's where parents and community members can ask questions and share concerns. That is my presentation on reopening. You have a resolution tonight that really is basically endorsing what you've heard in terms of our plans and just saying that the board is in agreement to what we've decided to do, at least as a starting point. So now I'll open it up to questions. You know, Andy's here in case you have any kind of ventilation questions. You heard that the high school's in really good shape. The timing of that could not have been more impeccable in terms of being, and then their proactive response by putting MERV 13s in those, or will be putting MERV 13s in them. Like, not many districts who weren't in the middle of a project could say that. And Mike, I know you're going to be talking later in the report. I want to make sure we have a special place for you. Yes. But if there's any questions in terms of, Mike's going to talk a little bit about COVID-related expenses that we didn't account for and some other financial stuff. But I want to open it up to the board for any questions about our reopening plan, any concerns, anything that you've heard from the community. I'd be happy to address those now.
Matt has a question.
Yeah, I want to rewind back to transportation. I'm thinking further into the year as the situation starts to change. What does our transportation capability look like if we end up with full participation in person? And we have the level of transportation needs that we had in previous years. I guess still with the A-Day, B-Day schedule, but perhaps less remote learners. I'm
going to be totally upfront with you. We're going to be challenged, right? When you take a look at the system, and you've already accounted for a couple of the constraints that we wouldn't be, you know, so 7 through 12 would be half the kids because we're A-B. But assuming that a lot of our remote learners return and they are expecting to ride the bus, that is going to be a challenge. Let me maybe take a stab at it. First of all, if a student is eligible for transportation, we have to provide, you know, we have to provide transportation. We can't just say, oh, the bus is full, you can't, you know, we don't have a seat for you. A few years ago, the transportation guidelines changed. Years ago, you had to have a seat for every student who was eligible. Then they said that doesn't make sense. That's inefficient. That's grossly inefficient. You could do it based on patterns of ridership, and that's typically how we do it. But what you're asking is that if all the same constraints are still in place, in that students are wearing a mask, but there can only be 1 per seat. If it's not a sibling, then there's a capacity quandary, right? And so at that point, we probably would have to investigate additional runs. You know, there's a couple ways to handle that. If you can either do additional runs with the same staff and buses, but then there's a timing implication in terms of instructional disruption. You could try to find more drivers and have more buses. We do have a couple spares, but the way that I understand the transportation operations, you know, you have a couple spares, but you always have a couple buses that are either in routine maintenance, scheduled maintenance, or sometimes you have ones that need to be fixed. And so we have 2 or 3 spares, so we might be able to cheat 1, maybe 2 if we're lucky. But then it's also, we're also got the issue that drivers are not plentiful. And the one thing that Mike and I talk about this all the time, we are really appreciative that our transportation department has stepped up. Not only did they step up in the spring to deliver food, but that our drivers on average are a little older and are in higher risk groups. And so, understandably, there's some concern. We're working with that association to make sure that they have, and I might not have an update on the shields, but if masks and shields and gloves and whatever else, they need to feel more comfortable about that. But anyway, Matt, I'm not trying to dance around your question, but we would have a quandary, and especially if the other constraint is that parents who are willing to help us out are either no longer willing or able to. That would certainly be an issue. Sorry, I can't bring a solution to that tonight.
No, thank you. It sounds like we do have some options there. So I'm thinking ahead 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, we do, and but all of them come with a price tag. And when Mike gets into the COVID expenses, and some districts have had to do this, they're doing double and triple tripping that they didn't do before, or they're adding some bus runs. That's not, and with everything else that Mike's going to describe to you tonight in terms of the governor's budget, an extra bus run could cost you $75,000. You do a couple of those before you know it adds up. I saw Destiny had her hand up too.
Hey, forgive me if this has been asked before, but in the event there is a positive case, how is it going to be communicated to families? Obviously with HIPAA, we can't say who it is, but at what threshold and how is that going to be communicated?
Yeah, I'm going to take the lead from some other organizations that I've seen. This is kind of weird, but my mom's in a nursing home, and I really like the transparency that they've provided families. I think we need to be upfront about it. I have been clear about if Johnny has 100-degree fever and he's going home with his mom, we didn't notify parents in classrooms previous to that. Destiny has a paper cut on her left finger. She went home today. But to me, the trigger is a positive case. If there's a positive case, then I can envision that not only will we be working with the Department of Health and everybody who is part of that contact tracing network would have to be notified by maybe us initially, and then the Department of Health in terms of instructions. But I could foresee us sending out, at least initially, we have a known case in the elementary school, and the information will probably travel faster than coming from me. But there's a positive case in a third grade classroom. We have that student has sought medical attention, that everyone involved in that situation is being contacted and properly quarantined. But we wanted you as a community to know that situation existed. We'll continue to monitor others who may have come in close contact for symptoms. We were going to do all the cleaning necessary to make sure that when those students can return to that classroom, they can do so in a safe manner. And remember, if we shut that classroom down, we know a little bit more about the virus. It doesn't live on surfaces as long as we thought it did. So chances are in the quarantine period, in addition to cleaning, that's going to be a safe environment to come back to. So my answer to you, taking it right back up to the simplistic level, is to the extent that we're not divulging any privacy information, I plan to be extremely transparent with our community. They're going to find out one way or the other, and I'd rather they find out from the district who wants to maintain a trusting relationship with them than to hear, "Oh, did you hear?" Now, that doesn't mean that people don't talk, and we've had people who've been tested over the last 6 months. And even back when people were being quarantined, and they said, "Oh, that person I think's got COVID," and it didn't come out to be the case. We will only communicate it when it's a confirmed case, but we will do so in a transparent manner.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other board members or anybody have any questions for Sal on this topic? Looks clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry that was a little bit lengthy, but we've really, because of the infrequency of the meetings, you've never really had a formal presentation to the board. And so thank you for doing that. So now I'm going to steal a little bit more time and turn it over to Mike to talk about some equally as important items in terms of our COVID response and some of the things that are developing at the state level that are pretty disconcerting financially. Mike?
Sure. So I wish I had some better news tonight. I've been sitting in business official meetings since March. Every week we have them now because of COVID, because of operations, finances. So we've been discussing, different things. And last week we finally did get, we're starting to get some withholding of state aid. So I wasn't planning on it. And state aid planning wasn't, when we discussed this, we weren't planning on last year's money being impacted, but that has started. So we had some receivables for last school year. BOCES aid is about $300,000. They always pay or $300,000 they pay in August for last year. And then we had special education aid of $160,000, and they've withheld 20% of those amounts. So the special ed aid, 32,000 was withheld. BOCES aid, 61,000 or so, roughly 62,000 is going to be withheld in the next week. And this is last year's money, which we weren't planning on. So you got about $100,000 right now in receivable money from last school year that's being withheld. And as we discussed this, it looks like, we were discussing this last year. Historically, 2000, 2008, I've been through, been doing this a long time. They typically take our operating aid out. They don't hit our reimbursables. So our foundation, our operating aid, as we discussed last year, was 4.8 million. I predicted 20%, so $962,000 I thought would be kind of the case scenario we might be dealing with. Our total state aid, now that they're hitting everything, is 7.8 million. So now we're looking at about almost $1.6 million. This is about 600,000 more than anticipated, and then you throw in the 100,000 for this last school year. So we're looking at 700,000 more dollars than we even thought we were going to hit in a worst case scenario. So effectively, we're talking 20%. If you looked at just the operating aid, adding in all the other aids, it's about a 34% cut now to our if you just look at it for our operations. So this is significant. The one thing is, I've done this a long time, and we're not going to panic right now. We do have a reserve plan we built up to handle, storms or bad times. So we will be able to handle this, but this is quite a bit more money than we were anticipating if this comes through. Now they said, and they didn't really announce, I was sort of surprised it came out, we get the money, and then, it wasn't announced until after the fact, because, they're saying it's a withholding. It might come back. So this is all based on the state getting federal aid. They're really waiting for federal aid to come through. It looks like in September, state aid planning is working with the Department of Division of Budget. They have the authorization to do this because the revenues aren't coming in these look back periods. They haven't been. So hopefully in September, we're going to get more guidance if this is going to be permanent or, where we're going with that. And like I said, I still have hope for some federal aid money, but this has been going on for a while. I was hoping in June or July we'd get that. So was Cuomo. So we'll see where we go. We do have we have a plan. We had a plan for the $962,000. I'm going to talk to Sal. We're going to start implementing some of that plan. But now we're looking at 1.6 million. So we're going to have to decide what we're going to do. We do have reserves. You use those in bad times. But like I said, unfortunately, I wish the news could be a little better. This was a surprise to all districts. The districts that don't have reserves, obviously if they get the 20% cut, I don't know what they're going to do. So at least we can get through. We can get through some years with this, but it's going to impact us also. The other side is COVID expenses. Just an update, there's a transfer. So what I've been doing is we have a 5-year facilities code, contractual code. We added, I think a couple of years I worked with Steve. I said, let's put some money in the budget in that code so we can handle in-house projects. We've done a lot of work. We did the capital project work. And actually in that capital project, we took care of some other years that we don't have to. So that money I'm transferring some of that to a COVID code. I'm tracking all the expenses. I'm also moving money out of health insurance, some of the money in there to help cover these costs. There's a budget transfer tonight. We spent about $25,000, maybe 30 counting last year, but we're ordering things. So I'm anticipating, $100,000, we could spend in COVID, if not more. I'm working with FEMA. I've been dealing with them for possible reimbursement. I've been sitting through the meetings, setting up. You got to go through a portal. Sat through about 4 meetings with them. So I'm tracking the expenses in a COVID code. I want all expenses to run through that so that it's an easy place if we have to, when we pull up the final number to put everything in and if the state audits us. So I am in hope of getting some reimbursement on that cost. If we spend $100,000, I am hoping to get 70,000 or 75,000 back, but we'll see where that goes. But we are tracking that. So those are really the two financial items. Like I said, state aid planning was caught. That was all a surprise when we received these payments. It didn't come out in any news article or anything that they're withholding that. because like they said, they're withholding. It's not a permanent cut yet. But I'll be sitting in these weekly meetings and talking to state aid, and they're going to be talking with the division so we can get more guidance, and I'll update you as we go forward. But that's that's the finance and COVID update for tonight.
Any questions for Mike? And then I have a couple things I want to just add.
What was that bottom line figure again, Mike?
So if I did 20% of our state aid,
yeah,
and the 100,000 from last year's they're holding right now, it's $1,655,000.
Thank you.
Yep.
Matt, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm wondering what else we might have hanging from last year, or was that the last state payment?
That's counting the last state aid payment. So fortunately, we received most of it during the year. They didn't withhold anything until some of these receivables that are coming in now. So that includes the $100,000 withhold is what we have outstanding. There won't be any more than that for last year.
Anybody else have any questions for Mike?
Just two additional comments I thought of while Mike was talking. First of all, as you can imagine, with all these new procedures and protocols, it'd be nice to add a few staff for supervision and operations, and that's not what we're looking to do. I've asked the principals to really look closely at different individuals' job function and within the parameters of their current duties. How can we utilize existing staff to make up in some of the areas where we're going to need something that's a little bit different than what we were accustomed to. So I wanted to mention that in terms of staffing at this point. One area where you can think of it is our nursing. We've had our nurses, I think by all accounts, I don't think I have this wrong. I think at the elementary level, Mary Noel saw something like 10,000 contacts last year, and maybe just a little bit less at the middle school and high school, but that's a lot of contacts. And we have, we know that now we're going to have 2 rooms. We're going to have an isolation room and a clean room. And, you can't be in 2 places at once, although those nurses are amazing. They haven't figured that out yet. So we're going to have to figure out how we provide supervision in the nursing area so that the nurses who will particularly be focused on the isolation room, if a student needs to come down, we're putting some new protocols in place, needs to come down because they bump their head or something, how are we going to deal with that? So we're looking into that. The other thing I didn't mention, and this could be another like half-hour presentation, but I would be remiss not to mention the governor's announcement yesterday that school sports can continue. At another time, I can bring you up to date, but it is a hot topic. I sat in on what's called a JMT, a joint management team meeting from the Questar superintendents, Capital Region superintendents in Saratoga, Wishy-Bosse's, and Fulton, Montgomery, Boise State, a lot of superintendents from the greater Capital District region. And I'll just leave it at this. It's hard for them to comprehend things like you have to be 12 foot apart in a physical education class, but at 3 o'clock when the bell rings, you can go play soccer on the soccer field. How is that even like comprehensible, right? So there's a lot of contradictions here. The New York State Physical Education Association is taking some time over the next few days. I'm meeting with John and JB at the end of the week to talk about this. But spectators, no spectators. If you're doing sports, does that mean extracurricular activities are back on the table? Remember what we said, we wanted to focus on instruction and cleaning and disinfecting, and now are we going to be distracted? And we understand the benefits of all these activities, right? It keeps our students engaged in school. It's just that starting on September 21st just seems to be difficult for a lot of people to, we've said that students will not be changing for gym. Well, how does that work with some of our, athletics? Some schools that have pools were like, what am I sending my students home, in a bathing suit? So it's fraught with a ton of issues. People are using their gymnasiums with desks for instructional areas. Well, how is that going to work if we're at having low contact sports that might practice or use a gymnasium? So I'm not going to go into it tonight, but I wanted to let you know that was yet another layer that was thrust upon us this week. And we all know that, and maybe even some of you are involved in your own children, have had travel and summer sports. I get it. But, we're doing our best to keep students socially distanced in the classroom, disinfected, wearing masks. And then, that doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that soccer is in no way, shape, or form a non-contact sport or low-contact sport. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, Craig, I think I am going to finally turn it back to you.
Was there any other questions before we move off this topic? Board's good? All right, we're going to move things along. New business. R11, be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the 2020-2021 reopening plan for the Chatham Central School District and approve the payment of money required therein. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That motion carries. New business. R12, be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the memorandum agreement dated August 25th, 2020 with the Chatham Central School District Principals Association. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Consensus agenda. R13, be it resolved that the Board of Education accept the consensus agenda H through J as written. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Actually, quick question on that. Consensus item J13, or sorry, not that one. J15. On that, if the students are canceled, how does that work with the athletic trainer?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sal.
Jesse, I got your email today, so I didn't get a chance to look in that. That's a good question. Mike, do you know? I know in terms of other contracts, we've put in clauses that if the services are not needed, there would be no. We had some flexibility in terms of compensation. I did not get a chance to research whether there's a clause in that contract. Do you know by any chance?
What is the? I can't
It's
see.
the athletic. It's the agreement with the athletic trainer. So Destiny's question is, if, for instance, we don't have any fall sports, I don't know. I apologize. That depending on the board's comfort, it may be worth pulling that one and tabling it until I can get that answered. I think that's a good.
I've answered her.
Okay.
And I kind of used the answer of the question the last time when we had to approve some of the some of the facilities that we sub out to. I had asked, and the answer I got back then was in some cases things have been prorated, but I'm not positive on this contract. And I know it's something that we're required to have, so I don't know how we couldn't sign a contract and assume that there would be some kind of fair play after. But if
here's what's interesting, I'll tell you. I don't know if this is Deb. You'd have to help me, but basically, this resolution is authorizing me to sign it. What if we put a contingency in there that I will not move it forward if there isn't some provision that allows us to prorate services that are not delivered, which I think is a prudent thing to do, and then bring it back around. That's the best way I think I can handle it.
I've got a follow-up question. Is our school nurses qualify for that, like for our phys ed, or would that, if a person twisted their ankle in gym, who would?
This isn't for gym. This is for athletic. So
right. I
football
know.
or whatever.
I wasn't sure because I know kids that have followed up with the athletic trainer for other reasons.
Yes, absolutely.
So I
It's
wasn't.
for all our athletes, and they do use that. But I think you're right, Sal. Sports don't start till the 21st, right, of September. So I think we should follow up on that. I think that we should get that clarified. I think it's worth the, either you have a clause that says you can follow up and we can do it, or when's the next board meeting?
And I have to apologize because now that you're bringing it up, I think that question had been asked. So I do need to, however your comfort level.
Well, does anybody else on the board want to weigh in?
I'd like to look into it. I'd like to see what our options are before we agree to it. So if everybody agrees to tabling it, that would be my suggestion.
Me too.
Yeah, so I mean, our next meeting is September 15th, right? So I could investigate it, and at minimum, one of two ways. You can authorize me to sign it, and I won't sign it unless that provision's in there. If I knew where we kept it, I'd go look right now. Although, I don't want to pause the meeting.
We could change the motion. Somebody could actually change the motion that we approve.
To authorize me to sign it only if there is provision to prorate. There you go. And if not, then I'll discuss it with the top form, and I'll come back. If that's not the case, I'll come back on the 15th with an answer or a new contract.
Okay. So Deb, you want to?
So I'm going to need a motion for us to change that wording. Okay. So why don't we say it was Destiny?
Yep.
Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Is that good for you? Okay, is that good, Destiny?
Yes.
Yep, that's good. All I want to know is the question, so yeah, that's good.
Gotcha.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay.
Deb's got some serious feedback for us.
I know.
So then we make a new motion to, well, do we call it by the, did we actually bring that out? Which one was it exactly? It was J15?
Yes, 1-5.
Correct.
So we made a motion to change J15 in consensus. Now we're going to make a new motion to have the superintendent sign it, the contract with the
New provisions.
with new provisions to that we actually need the. Go ahead, Deb. Right, and I'll repeat it.
I can write it up. Yeah.
Okay. So, motion on the revised J15, as Deb writes it. Can I get one?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Matt's got his hand up. Go ahead, Matt. Matt?
That was an old hand. Sorry.
Oh. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. All in favor of that change?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All in favor of the consensus?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Now, we've Megan actually asked that exact question. I remembered on one of our special needs contracts going out of the area, and that's where I remembered that prorating. So, do you remember that, Meg?
I do. Thank you for remembering.
Yeah, I got a strange mind like that. I'm sorry. Can't remember important things, really crazy important things. But so that's how I attempted to answer that, Destiny. I thought that answer would be similar, but you never know. Contracts are contracts. So, and I thank you for bringing that up. So we're going to move on. Any items for future agenda? I see no hands up. Nobody's making a comment. So we have no items for future agenda as of now. I think we're going to need to make a motion to enter into executive session for collective negotiations. Can I get that motion?
I'll second it.
Any everybody for that? I'm gonna need a motion to appoint Sal as district pro temp. Can I get a motion? Can I get a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I don't anticipate coming back to open session, so I'll need a motion to not come back. I guess.
Motion to adjourn.
We're good.
I don't know. Adjourn this meeting, I guess, but I'm not sure.
Right. I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Do I
Second.
have a second? Okay, we'll see you guys in a little bit. Are you good, Deb?
Yes, I'm good.
All right, Sal?
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks,
Yes, sir.
Andy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone who attended. There's 56 people watching tonight. We really appreciate your participation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Many of our staff.
I saw that.
I just want, Craig, two things that actually come to mind. Matt, as we come out of this COVID thing, because of that participation, we'll look into how we're going to be able to make sure that we're doing proper outreach to those in the community, because I think the convenience of this has really proven to be very beneficial.
Oh, absolutely.
Make sure that we keep that in mind. And that our next meeting on September 15th will likely, if the governor does not extend the executive order, be in person, and we will go back to, I know the board's wishes to go back to allowing public comment. So we'll do so at that time.
Thank you. We'll have that all worked out. So hopefully it's in person with a lot of space. We're going to the other room.
All right. Good night, everyone.
We'll see you guys in a little bit.